Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our November, Friday the 13th Aquatics Committee meeting here. So I'm going to get us started with a few updates from the IPRA. We'll probably let Steve chime in here as well. And then we'll turn this over to Kate and Brian here. So for those of you that haven't heard, the governor just released another proclamation on Tuesday that went into effect beginning at 12:01 a.m. on Wednesday, November 11th. So this has a lot to do with gathering restrictions inside, a lot of encouragement for face shields. I don't know if you call it a mandate. They are saying once you're inside, that it is mandated for anyone over the age of 2 if there's more than 25 people indoors. I did hear her mention that there was penalties that they were going to try and enforce with this, but I guess that's up to enforcement. But I think there was the caveat that was said of trying to work with people and continue the educational aspect of that too. So in regards to this, outside of aquatic stuff, we're getting ready to host a meeting on Tuesday, the 17th at 10 o'clock. It's just part of our rec interest meeting that will kind of dive into this a little bit more of how are we doing indoor recreational activities for those facilities that are still open. I was on social media this morning and I'm seeing places that are shut down. Carlene was saying they've been sent home there as well. So it's you know, it's taken a toll yet again on us in the park and rec industry. So we can discuss at the end, following our guest speaker and our panel discussions, stuff that's going to directly affect the aquatics part of it. But if you are also wear multiple hats in your park and rec industry and you've got recreational activities, please join us on the 17th. We're hoping that the meeting is about 45 minutes, short, sweet, to the point, not take up too much of your time. Of course, if people have additional questions, we'll stay on there and help answer that. But Jeff Lucas with the city of Clive issued a mass mandate for all of their youth programming, which I believe, off the cuff, I'm saying 120 youth teams, which literally affects thousands of people within the metro area there. So if they can do their part to do the mask wearing and still keep kids active, that's really what they're hoping for. Now, I don't know, that was put into place on Sunday prior to the governor's latest proclamation here. So we'll see if that's still holding true on Tuesday, if they're still opening and functioning. But just wanted to get that out to you on the homepage of the IPRA website. I do have the governor's latest proclamation. I do have the Iowa Department of Public Health summary of enhanced public health measures. Just a quick glance, kind of a cheat sheet type of thing of how that that proclamation is laid out and what things to look for here. So please head out to that site and check that out if you guys aren't already in communication with your recreation departments and pools and indoor facilities and stuff that way. So as far as other activities with the IPRA, we're continuing to do our CPO schools following the masking up. Steve, do you want to touch on Cedar Rapids next week, where you guys are at with that? Oh, you're on mute, Steve.
We got a lot of things we're trying to juggle here on a Friday. Yes, we've got Cedar Rapids coming on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We have approximately 22 people for Monday's CEU workshop, and about, well, it's changing on a regular basis, about between 10 and 12 people for the Certified Pool Operator School, Tuesday and Wednesday. The city of Cedar Rapids and Lynn County have face covering mandates. All of the participants have been notified that. Best Western Plus also has a company policy that face coverings are required. So like I said, all of the participants have been notified, my instructors have been notified, and I will be wearing one. I have reached out to the city of Davenport and Scott County to verify what their status is regarding face coverings. We continually move forward with our Certified Pool Operator schools. A couple reasons. One is that it's required of a certified pool operator or aquatic facility operator staff member on staff. And secondly, aquatic CEU workshops are required by code. So we're wanting to maintain those same level of service for those individuals. That being said, it's also a great revenue, a great non-dues revenue source for the association that we now don't have to rely on 100% from conference, fall workshop, or membership dues, whereas 87% of the participants in our pool schools are non-IPRE members. And our next class will be December 7, 8, 9 in Davenport at the Best Western Steeplegate.
Great, thank you. I think as far as, I guess the other thing I want to say is if you are an individual paid professional member current for fiscal year 2021, you should have received a survey for our 2021 conference that's slated to be held in Sioux City, March to end of March to April 1st here. Please fill out that survey. Last I checked a couple days ago, we had 80 individuals that had already filled that out. We need to know where you guys are sitting as far as your budgets, your travel, all of that. And I know that's constantly changing because we're going to keep sending this out. Similar questions that we asked following the virtual workshops the last 2 times we held those too. So it's important for our association to be able to move forward and take a really good look at what our members are able to do. At this point, we are still planning for an in-person meeting, but we'll certainly take taking into consideration you guys' feedback on that and what mandates and stuff might be coming up. We've got another planning committee meeting with them scheduled for Monday, the 23rd. So we'll take that feedback that we get from this survey and pass that on to our planning committee, the folks in Sioux City here. So if you haven't done that, please go out and fill that out for all of those individual paid professionals at this time. We'll be sending out to our commercial members and stuff. I've already started to get some contacts of, hey, I didn't get it. We'll be sending that out to our exhibitors and our commercial members to see who's on board, because we know that exhibit hall is such an important part of that conference as well. For you guys to have contact with them is great. So anything else from our standpoint, Steve?
No, I'm good to go.
Okay. We'd also like to do some Red Cross updates, and I think I'm going to turn that over to Kate. Were you going to be doing those, Kate, from the Red Cross? We've gotten a couple emails from Cindy lately.
Yes, and I think, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but were we going to do that at the end, or did you want to, so we can jump into guest speakers, or did you want to go over that now?
We could take a minute or two and just talk about the latest update. It'll be fine.
Okay, so the biggest update from the Red Cross is price increases. So if you haven't already looked at that, Kelly has put it on the website. I was just looking there today on the front facing part, so you can see it in the front page there. It goes up depending on what it is, $1 or $2. So just something to be mindful of for budgeting purposes, but also when you're seeing price reflections, it is increasing. There's also another extension that they have put out that goes until the end of the year. I'm trying to pull it up here. I wasn't entirely prepared. I'll post the link in the comment section though for people to look at and just be aware of. And then if anybody has any individual questions about that, we can pick up some Q&A towards the end as well about what implications the certifications might have and stuff like that. I will say that I don't know of an IT academy that the Red Cross has hosted. They canceled ours out of Iowa City in October. And so IT academies are really hard to come by right now. But I think that we'll either have, more clarity in the next few months about as they start to reopen, or just more of the same. So keep that in mind, that those are not happening in the immediate instance. And I know some people have some questions about running classes and LGI and things like that. So we'll kind of table that for after the presenters. And if there is some dialogue around that, we can talk through some of those details as well.
Cool. Is that it for the Red Cross type of deal? I know I just sent recently the WSI recertifications for those that need it. They're starting to come out online, but that's all I know about Red Cross and the update.
Mhm. Yeah,
there's other just CPR classes, but that shouldn't pertain to,
Right.
well, I guess I shouldn't say that. It probably does pertain to if you guys have other people as part of your professional team that, concession workers that just have those CPR, that there's a provisional certificate. So you've got, you can apply for the videos and stuff online, then you've got up to 1 year to do the in-person class. And I believe, please tell me if I'm saying this wrong, but I believe once you do your in-person skills, then that certificate is good from 2 years from that date. So I guess that does extend just those basic CPR classes to some of your additional staff members that might be non-lifeguards that you require to have certification.
Yeah, you're right. It's up to 2 years. They have to get that test done within a year type of deal. It's weird, but yeah.
Yep. Great. I think that's all I've got on our end. Brian, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start off. So first and foremost, thanks for everyone for attending. And most importantly, thanks for those that have completed the survey. Wanted to give an update on that. I have completed some of the aspects with it because of budgeting. So for example, wages are done and daily fees are done. So those have been sent forward and will be released soon. The biggest challenge right now is the season passes and the punch passes. They're a little bit more delayed as they're very cumbersome, very complex. And then on top of that, based on some of the survey results, the answers were just kind of unclear. So I've been kind of taking the time to research and kind of do the extra mile to make sure we have the most accurate information. But wages are done, so that should be released soon. In terms of, I know we talked behind the scenes a little bit on a maintenance survey. I know this is going to be a surprise. I think right now we'll table that for a future meeting, see how this first survey gets done. But essentially the survey that you guys completed, at the end, it's an overall comprehensive survey. So they're majority of the same questions we typically ask every single time we meet. So it's kind of just having that quick cheat sheet for us so we can get to the meatier type of topics. And as we talk about meaty topics, today is a very meaty topic. Kind of looking at, we've invited a couple of speakers and I'll go into that here in a minute, but as we look at kind of the current trends with COVID and how do we move forward with especially indoor pools that are trying to stay afloat in this weird time. One of the things that we felt that was very valuable is going back and talking about combined chlorine and air quality and the purpose of that, because essentially when it comes to potential spread or COVID, some of that can be transferred in an what's the word I'm looking for? An imbalanced area. So if you have a really poor air quality, the chances of potential spread is there. And this is more, even though it is centered around indoor pools, there are questions at the end that's for everyone. So definitely stay till the end all the way through, because some of these questions really start us to really think, what are we doing to make sure our community is on par, keeping our waters clean and all that. I did invite today Carico, Andy and Cindy felt that since they work with our pools, definitely bringing that home to our state. And then at the end, we'll have a question and answer panel. Invited Katie from Katie Consultants, and then Lauren from Space Coast, both in different areas of the state, to kind of give some outside our border perspective as well and handle any questions that we may have as well. So I would say without further ado, we can start right on into it if we want to start the Carico presentation.
That sounds great. Good morning, everyone. We're more than happy to help out in any way that we can. And I've got a presentation, I'm able to share the screen, right? Without any, okay. So let me see. Done this a few times, but you know, sometimes things never really work the way you planned them to, so. Why isn't it? Files, let's see if this works.
If you scroll the bottom there, can you find where your share screen is?
I found the share screen, I'm just not getting my file to
Oh,
load up. Why won't it do that? Let's see. If, all right, are you guys seeing that? Share, let me try that. That's not working.
are you just working off of one computer or do you have a second one we need to bring in?
I have a, I just have a monitor that I'm trying to share from.
Okay.
I apologize, I've not had this issue before when I tried to share something from my screen, so. I have no idea where the Zoom meeting went. So you guys can all still see me, correct?
We can see you in the box. Can you, if you tried to open another screen, if you go down to the bottom, it probably just minimized your Zoom. If you click on the blue camera looking thing, you should be able to see us again.
Camera. Okay, full screen. No, it didn't. Yeah, because I don't have the panel of everybody in my screen anymore.
So it probably minimized down on the bottom of your screen. Do you see the little blue camera icon, the Zoom?
Okay, yep.
Yep, click on that and that should bring us back up there.
Okay. There we go. All right, so if I want to share my screen, it's not allowing me to select a file off. Oh, here we go. There it is. My apologies.
You're fine.
All right.
Great, there you go, we got it.
Okay, you can see this now?
Yep.
All right, well, we've done a lot of research on air quality and have done several air quality improvements in many facilities. Some in Iowa, we're relatively new to Iowa, but many in Wisconsin. So we've been able to really do some extremely good work with improving air quality. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about is, where do the chloramines come from? Okay, how do we get them in our water and how do they get into our air? Well, obviously the people that swim in our pool, right? They're the ones that are creating the most problems with combined chlorine. And one of the things I noticed that showering is, and this has been a trend for many, many years. Back in the 80s, I was the director of aquatic facility, and it was a real struggle back then to get people to shower. But a gentleman and a group of people did a study back in the late 90s, and they said that if someone just showered for 30 to 60 seconds, they would reduce the amount of urea on their skin. And this is with their swimsuit on and no soap or anything. They would significantly reduce the amount of urea on their skin. And if they took a hot soapy shower, it really, really minimized the amount of extra germs and bacteria and skin cells that they were bringing into our pool water. There's another study that was done, and I found this online and it was very recent, but I just want, and we can share this article with everyone, but in this article, you can see, and I'm not going to read all of this, but they're saying when people don't take showers, if you have 15 adults and 30 children in the pool, you have about 152 grams of fecal matter, or a third of a pound in the pool. And there's approximately 1 billion viruses in every gram of feces. So it's pretty disgusting when you think about it. And that's why we want to keep a lot of chlorine in our pools. So where are other places that we get chloramines from besides people not showering? Well, the people in our water, of course, we have swim teams swimming in our pools, and nearly every swim team member will admit that they never get out of the pool to go pee. They just continue to swim, and whatever happens, happens. The World Health Organization several years ago surveyed 500 adults, and 400 of the 500 adults admitted to peeing in the pool. And I'm thinking that, okay, the other 100 had to lie, because I don't know any adult that would admit to peeing in the pool. So it's kind of strange that they're doing that. And then when we do have those high bather loads, does our chemical feed equipment keep up? Is it sized large enough? We always want to size our chemical feed equipment so that it can meet the demands of worst case scenarios when our pool is at its busiest, whether it's a swim meet or you have open swim. You want to make sure that that chemical feed equipment can keep up and not allow the chlorine to fall below what the bather load is introducing into the water. So it's not only the people that are giving us that combined chlorine. We also have source water. This is a picture of a surge tank, and you can see all of the corrosion on that hand wheel operator. And this facility, when we took this picture, that facility was about 6 years old. So there's a lot of combined chlorine. And one of the reasons for that is that we have combined chlorine in our source water. And at this particular facility, the source water combined chlorine coming from the city was between 0.6 and 1.0 parts per million. And the reason that we have combined chlorine in our source water is that municipalities will treat their drinking water with combined chlorine because it's a great disinfectant. It really does a good job of killing all the germs and the bacteria in the water. It doesn't oxidize. And we know that from our pool operator classes that when we want to get rid of the bacteria, the germs in our pool water, our disinfectant not only has to disinfect or kill all the bugs, it has to oxidize them up into the air. So the combined chlorine is put into the water that we drink so that it kills the bugs in the water all the way to the furthest ends of the municipality's service so that we're not getting germs in our water when we run it from our tap. So if we've got combined chlorine in our source water, every time we put water in our pool, we are adding that to our pool water. So one of the things that's really important for you to look at is that to test your source water to see how much combined chlorine you're getting just from your source water, to see if that's where you're getting some of your pool water combined chlorine. Another problem is incomplete oxidation. And I mentioned already that if you have really high bather loads and your chemical feed equipment can't keep up, what happens is there's just not enough chlorine in the water to be able to kill the bacteria that all those swimmers are introducing into the pool water. Something else that we've seen is that, especially with sodium hypochlorite or liquid chlorine, is that it loses its strength over time. And it should be delivered to you at about 10 to 12%. And over time, in 30 days time, that may drop to like 6 or 7%, especially if your equipment room is really hot, like 85 or 86 degrees. And we'll typically recommend, if you're going to use bulk chlorine, like in this picture, you definitely want to have 2 tanks so that when one tank is getting low, you call your supplier up and have them fill the other tank so that you're not diluting your chlorine every time you get a bulk fill. So it's really optimal to have 2 tanks. When one is getting low, have the other one filled and then run that one dry so that you're not diluting your newest delivery. Okay. Another source for combined chlorine is the disinfection byproducts. And these are all the things that are left behind in the pool water. They're too tiny to be filtered out. But when the chlorine kills all those germs and gets rid of them, there's just, it's part of the total dissolved solids they're left behind. And they contribute, if we don't have good oxidation and good air handling, then we're going to have that air quality that really smells bad. So I mentioned that it's perfect. We have combined chlorine in our drinking water and in our source water. And it's okay to drink that water. It's okay to shower with that water. It's okay to drink that water. But the problem with combined chlorine in our swimming pools is that it contaminates our air. Okay. Once that chlorine in our water disinfects and oxidizes all of that germs and bacteria, it goes up into the air. And our air handling system has to be sized, it has to be running to compensate for that and get rid of that smelly air. When I teach CPO classes, I always mention that if you go into a hotel or motel, because they're notorious for this, and you can smell chlorine in the lobby, that's a bad sign. Because what they're doing is they're pushing all that combined chlorine air into the rest of the hotel instead of exhausting it out of the facility. So air quality is just as important as water quality. We want to make sure that we're maintaining great air quality. We have a prime example of how corrosive that pool air quality can be. So this is a facility that we've done all of the, we've worked with them and maintained their air handling system. And before we started doing anything with their air quality, one of our service techs went up onto the roof and took a picture of the air vents. And one air vent is from the locker room and one air vent is from the swimming pool. And I'll bet you all can guess that the one on the left is the one from the swimming pool because of the corrosive nature of the air that pool is exhausting. So we want to make sure that we are pulling that dirty air out of our building and not corroding the inside of our building as well. So here are some pictures, and this is some information that Brian sent me, an article. And again, we can share that with you all so that you can read through this. But I pulled some of the important parts out. So the picture on the top, you can see that's an H-beam going across the ceiling of an aquatic facility. And after 12 years, the corrosion that's on that beam. And the second picture is of a ceiling hanger that they hang lights from or speakers from. And if they're not zinc coated, you're going to have a lot of issues with anything that's hanging from your ceiling. And you could have the potential for a catastrophe. Here are a couple more pictures. Again, this is a bracket that's holding up the ceiling, the trusses on the ceiling. You can see again the corrosion because of air quality. This is all due to air quality. And then again, the bolts in the bottom picture. So if you're not able to exhaust that corrosive air, you can see something like this has happened in 1985, and this is in Switzerland. All from this article that Brian provided me. The corrosion in the room was so extreme that they lost the entire ceiling. And finally, here's another picture of some catastrophic things that can happen if we're not maintaining great air quality. So with that, all of that information, what can we do to prevent or eliminate combined chlorines, not only in our water, but in our air? And we have the traditional methods that we learn about in CPO class. There's the breakpoint chlorination, where you're increasing your chlorine by 10% parts per million higher than your combined chlorine. You can also do water replacement, where some facilities will just actually drain water out of the pool and get rid of it. But again, if your source water has combined chlorine in it, you may have a battle that you just can't win with your source water replacement. I had an operator that kept draining water out of his pool, and he said, I can't get rid of the combined chlorine. And I said, well, what is it when you're draining it? He said, it's like 0.4. I said, well, your source water has a combined chlorine of 0.8. So you're just shooting yourself in the foot and throwing away heated, treated water. So water replacement may not always be the best option. And then secondary disinfection, which is our UV that we can put on, and that will get rid of combined chlorine as well. So what else can be done? We've come up with a 5-step solution that we've found to be very successful in a lot of our facilities. So the first step that we typically will start with before we do anything with any kind of equipment is we'll have them clean their deck. And one of the facilities that we work with, they had the latest technology, they had their air handling set up, came in and inspected it, it was commissioned correctly, they had everything was working perfectly. And when swim team was in there, their combined chlorine would get so bad, the swimmers would have so much trouble breathing that they couldn't even make it through the first 30 minutes of practice. And we went in on a Saturday during a swim team practice, and we tested the water every half hour, and there's no combined chlorine in the water. But when you walked out onto the deck, the odor was really, really offensive. So we started asking the question about, well, what do you think about the deck? Is the deck clean? When was the last time you cleaned the deck? And the operator said, well, you know, I've been here 5 years. I don't think we've ever cleaned the deck. You know, they hose it down, but they don't ever really clean it. And we said, well, let's just do this test and see what we get. So we splash a bunch of pool water onto the pool deck. And we all know that pool decks aren't level. So there was some puddling, and we found a place where it puddled. And we were able to let that water, that pool water, sit on the deck for a few minutes. And then we went and picked that water up with a paper towel, and we tested the combined chlorine of the water from the deck. Now, again, there was 0 combined chlorine in the pool water, but when we picked it up from the deck, it was about 1.6 parts per million of combined chlorine. So we said, well, we think this is the source of your problem. We really do, because every time the swim team was doing their flip turns and splashing pool water onto the deck, they were creating that atmosphere with the combined chlorine in the air. And combined chlorine is heavier than air, so it would float close to the surface of the pool water, and that's why the swimmers were having so much difficulty during swim practice. So we asked them, we said, all right, we're gonna, in the picture, this is a tool called Wizzy Wash. And we provided them with a couple of those, and it's a collegiate swimming pool, so it was a pretty big deck. And they had 2 people start, they started at in one corner, and they started to go around the perimeter of the pool. And within 20 minutes, they had to stop because the combined chlorine fumes were so strong, they couldn't stay in there anymore. So they had to do it, and it took them over a week to completely disinfect that deck. And once they completed that process, they had no more issues with combined chlorine. Their swim team never had to stop practice again because of the combined chlorine smell in the room. So that's step 1. We will always start with that with anyone that's having issues with combined chlorine. Okay. Our second step is we want to select a chlorine that works for your pool. Okay. And when we work with a facility, we always look at what, again, we want to test their source water. Our motto is we want to provide you with a chemical feed system that's going to cost you the least amount of time and use the least amount of chemicals. So if we test your source water and see what already is available in your source water, like alkalinity or calcium, any of those things that are part of our water balance, then we'll put together a chemical treatment system that is beneficial to your source water and doesn't fight against your source water. And then the other things that we look at are your storage situation. How can it be delivered? We had a situation with a facility that put in a bulk chlorine tank and a bulk acid tank. And when the bulk chlorine supplier went to go deliver, he said, I don't have a hose long enough to deliver that liquid chlorine. You're going to have to come up with an alternative. So all of those things have to be looked at when you're selecting a disinfectant. So you want to find something that has a long shelf life, that's going to make a high concentration of chlorine when you need it, and be able to deliver it in a manner that's fast enough to keep up with your bather load. Okay. So that's our second step. And if that doesn't work, we go to step 3. Step 3 is to put in a UV system. And we want to make sure, and it's really important that you look at a system that is NSF certified. Because if it hasn't been certified by the NSF, you don't really know if it does what the salesperson is telling you it does. We've had situations where it's like a snake oil. You want to make sure that it's a proven technology, that the NSF has certified that it'll do what they're claiming it does. And there are 4 manufacturers right now that make NSF certified systems. Okay. Another really important thing, if you have to go to step 3 to get rid of combined chlorine, is that you want to make sure that 100% of the flow goes through that UV system. So you can see this system is a facility, again, that we work with. It's since been changed because your UV system should not be your nightlight in your equipment room. Okay, this was installed in Schedule 40 pipe, and within a couple of years that UV emits the light and it makes that Schedule 40 pipe very, very brittle. So we want to make sure that we're using Schedule 80 pipe and that 100% of the flow goes through our UV system. So as our water is circulating, every time it passes through that UV system, it's going to kill and get rid of all the germs in the water. It'll neutralize cryptosporidium, and then it gets rid of combined chlorine as the water flows through there. Okay. Once we get to step 4, the next thing we are going to look at is the air handling system. And part of step 4 is the UV and the air handling system have to work together. Now, in the CPO class, when I teach that class, it says the Pool and Hot Tub Alliance now says that you should have at least 50% outside air always coming in and throw away 50% of the air in your facility. They're saying you should be doing that 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that's really not practical in our climates because we know that it costs a lot of money to heat that outside air when we're bringing it into our pools. So if we can tie the air handling system with our UV system and get rid of that smelly air when we have a lot of people in the water, and then not as much outside air when the pool is empty, and we're going to have a win-win scenario for all of that to happen. Okay. So for all of that to happen, step 5, incorporating some technology to be able to coordinate our air handling system with our water chemistry. And this is from a large water park that we work with. They installed this technology last year. Within the first year, we have a Focus on Energy is a company that goes in and provides incentives for facilities to incorporate this technology. And they figured just with their tying their UV together with their air handling and their pump energy, they would save about $100,000 a year in electrical. So it's something that could be very, very beneficial for not only providing great air quality and water quality for the people that swim in your facilities and the people that work at your facilities, but also you can save some money in the process. So here's an example of what that technology looks like and how it's all incorporated together. in our facility in Wisconsin, we have we call this our live classroom, and we did a mock-up of basically like a commercial pool with a pool that's got about 6,000 gallons of water in it. Okay, but we've got all the technology incorporated in it. So on the very left, you can see that we have our controller, and we've got it open so you can see how all the electrical is connected. Then as we move to the right, we've got a black box that shows how we measure the free and total chlorine. Above that on the top, there's our UV system and then our filter system. And then we've got a VFD on our pool pump here. You can see my cursor. We've got our chemical feed system, and then we've got our air handling VFD. And this is all tied together in this control system right here. Okay. So finally, we have the technology to communicate our pool water chemistry with our air handling system, because most facilities in the summertime, they set their air handling to summer mode. And in the winter time, they set their air handling to winter mode, and they're exhausting the same amount of air no matter how many people are in the pool. And that's just not economically efficient, and it may not meet the demands that you have in your pool when you have a swim meet or a lot of bathers in your pool water. So the research and the programs that we've worked with, we've come up with, we call it our Nexus technology, or a way to communicate our environmental condition of our pool water and our air with that control system, so that we can provide the safest air and the safest water and save money at the same time. So basically what happens is, in real time, we are continually monitoring the combined chlorine in our pool water. And when that combined chlorine in our pool water starts to increase, we know it's getting oxidized into the air, and we have to tell our air handling system to exhaust more air. And we can program that controller to do that based on whatever you want as a threshold. So if you say, when the combined chlorine gets to 0.2, I'm going to bring in more outside air, and you can ramp it up and down to as much outside air as it's needed to get rid of the combined chlorine in your air. Okay. So it's real time, and it's the most effective way to handle the water quality and the air quality. Okay. So here's an example of a control system that shows we have our pH, we have our ORP, and then our free and total chlorine. Finally, the combined chlorine. And obviously this was a picture taken when there are a lot of fail safes and alarms going on, but it's just an example. And then inside the control system, let's say you're comfortable with the combined chlorine being 0.2, but if it gets any higher than 0.3, you're going to send a signal to the air handling system to say, all right, the combined chlorine's starting to increase. Not only do I want to bring in outside air, but if you have a UV system that can be increased or decreased based on your combined chlorine, you're going to be able to do that as well.
Hello, this is Laura.
All right. Thanks for the musical addition there, whoever did that. So on the technology side, not only are we able to save and bring in and provide safer air for the people that are in our facility, but we can also use that technology to reduce our costs of running our pool pump that's running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And on top of that, we can have that control system communicate to us or be able to monitor what that control system is doing remotely, either through your laptop computer or your home computer, as long as you've got an internet signal, or there's an app as well. So if we have VFD control of our pool pump, you can see there's a VFD here and our pool pump and motor here. And if we install a mag meter, like you can see in this picture with these two pumps, That control system can read both of those mag meters and tell the pool pump to run it exactly or a little above the flow rate that's required by code. And by doing that, we can slow the water down through our pool filters and save money and save on having to backwash as often. Because when we slow the flow down through our pool filters, it actually makes our filters work better. And that was another one of the things that we did in our research is we thought that we were going to have some water quality issues by slowing the flow down through our pool filters, but we ended up actually having cleaner water and we didn't have to backwash as often. So this is another thing that we could do to not only provide safer water for our swimmers, but save money at the same time. Okay. And then we've got our remote access. There's an app for that. So some control systems, and this one in particular is Bex, but they have an app where you can, right from your phone, pull up the status of your facility. And if you have more than one pool, you would have more than one status, but you can see, it tells me everything that I need to know as far as what the pH is, what the ORP is, my free total combined chlorine. See, the combined chlorine at this facility is extremely high. Water temperature is 55 degrees, the flow rate of up to 5 flow meters if you've got the right Bex's controller. And if you don't have the app on your phone and you've got the software on your computer, you can also go right to your computer. And from your computer, you could go in and say, hey, I want to change the set point of my pH. I want to lower it, increase it. If you have your heater connected to this, you could also change the water temperature. So there's a lot of things on the technology side of operations that are not only going to provide us with safer air, but save us some money and help us be able to monitor those, especially with everybody that's working remotely now. This is some extremely valuable software and technology that we can all take advantage of. Okay. So that's what I have for my presentation. Let's see if I can stop. There we go. Everybody back?
Yeah. Thanks, Cindy. Real quick, I do want to interject because I know Katie had sent me that article, which I sent to you. Katie, I know you've talked a little bit about that. According to your email, you've done a presentation on that particular pool. Do you have anything you want to chime in with the article that Cindy had shared regarding the indoor quality?
Yeah, thank you. I didn't do the presentation that was the basis of the article. That is an article that I use when I teach and work with different clients. So I want to clarify that it's not my research and it's not my presentation. However, I do think it's a valuable example of an extreme situation where air quality did contribute to the failure of metal fittings that held up different parts of the ceiling that resulted in deaths and injuries as they fell to the pool deck. But I think it's also important that we identify that we don't know, at a granular level, there's very specific discussion about the nature of the metal work itself. So we don't want to say that it's conclusively only air quality. It could have also been shortcuts, as was mentioned, things such as zinc coating or the quality of stainless steel. In general, in the aquatics industry, there's a lack of understanding that there is no one type of stainless steel when we talk about fittings and fixtures. It does very much depend on the blend of metals that go into stainless steel, as well as manufacturing chains and sourcing. So it's not going to be just air quality in that specific European tragedy.
Thank you. I guess before we go to the guided questions and answers, I guess, is there any questions for the group right now? All right, I would say, Kate, if you want to start with the first question, and we'll see where it goes on the guided questions. How about,
Clarify, are you talking to me or Kate Connell?
sorry, Kate Connell. Yeah, there's, I was like, Kate
Wait, I
Connell.
thought you said Katie too. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I was like,
Sorry about that. Okay, so Brian, you want me to go through the Q&A that you sent then?
let's start with that and see where the guided discussion goes.
Okay, that sounds great. Let me grab that. I wasn't prepared. Sorry for the hold up. Typing away here. Let's see. Do you have that in front of you, Brian? Because it might take me a second to find it.
I do.
Why don't you kick off the first one and then I'll find it and I'll jump in. Sorry, everybody.
It's okay. Let me start off with the very basic one, especially for those that are currently right now with swim team usage at your pools. Currently right now, looking at all this, I guess the first question that I have for everyone to think about is, how do you go about educating those teams coming in? And do you guys have like an understanding of how you guys work together on maintaining not only water quality, but air quality? So let's just start with that, see where the discussion is at your location, and go from there.
Brian, are these questions for the panelists or are we wanting the professionals to jump in?
Let's start with the professionals first, and then
Okay.
the panelists can chime in where it's necessary. So
Well, I can go first, and I think the silver lining maybe of COVID would be that you could incorporate showers as part of the COVID protocol, because it's very clear that they have a lot of bacteria on their bodies. And I don't know, I know some facilities in Wisconsin, I'm not as familiar with the Iowa pools, but they're making all of their people that use their facilities shower at home so that they're not using the showers at the pool. But just re-emphasizing in your COVID protocol, maybe to add that as they must, to help reduce the possibility that maybe showers are highly recommended, or what however you wanted to word that.
So I have a couple of different comments. Some of them are centered on your question, so I don't want to change the conversation either.
Yeah.
But I do think we need to look generally at who the populations and clients are that are bringing in significant contaminants into the pool. And certainly swim teams are a part of that. They are our frequent users, and by hour and time, they may be in the pool more than some of our other populations. But in my experience, competitive swimmers are not necessarily the dirtiest customers that we're seeing at our facility, based on the fact that they are in the pool 6 to 8 hours per week, let's say. And even though they have no shame in peeing in the pool, they are otherwise aware of the fact that they are swimming in the same water. And so be that as it may, I think we need to look generally at the broader education of our clients and facility users. And to that end, I would recommend the Center for Disease Control has an excellent website called Healthy Swimming that has a variety of free resources, including pamphlets and posters, all free to download. The most significant one that I've used as a facility manager with my public clientele has been What's in Your Cannonball, which graphically illustrates a lot of the points that Cynthia raised in terms of the sweat, urine, lotion, and feces that come off the human body. And so something even as simple as advertising that within your change rooms, on the back of bathroom stalls, if you insert advertising space for your own programs and education, that can be a significant conversation piece that leads into the screening that Cynthia mentioned, such as self-screening and really highlighting the cleanliness that surrounds our COVID usage of aquatic facilities, really encouraging that car wash, soaking, complete shower Time is very difficult to manage in the showers because often we have automatic showers that shut off after 15, 20 seconds to save water, which is at odds with our request that people shower for longer periods of time. So that has to be navigated. And then also with the comment to circle back specifically to swim teams, your members, municipal facilities in Iowa, I mean, you have the right to build your team contracts. And in those team contracts, those user group agreements, there should be very clearly requirements, things such as when can swim team come on deck? When can they start their dryland training? When can they enter the pool? Who does setup? All of that goes into the contract. And there's nothing to say that you cannot have an appendix with regards to swimmers, general hygiene in terms of how they come to the pool, what they're wearing. And certainly with COVID, there's a lot of amendments right now that are happening in facility usage. So sliding in a couple of rules about general cleanliness and having their ranking in pool bookings lowered if you don't have compliance from your competitive swimmers is a very easy way for your members to leverage an improvement in water quality without investing thousands of dollars in capital upgrades that may not be feasible in the current climate.
I was just going to chime in. One thing on the maintenance side that hasn't been touched on yet, you know, when we don't have to do things for we can forget about them for 8 months of the year, and then we get into that special season, you know, sometimes we forget. Something very cheap to help your air handlers work more efficiently is checking their filters. And we've run across a lot of facilities where that hasn't happened in a long time, and those filters just get plugged. But more specifically, we're coming up in the time of the year where we live, where there's it's going to start snowing, and those intakes can get clogged with snow. You know, just like your personal homes, you know, you don't want your furnace intake getting clogged with snow, and that can have a serious impact on chloramines in your facility and your air quality.
Lauren, I'll kick it over to you and maybe see if you have any other suggestions for different user groups, or even just additional resources for signage or other ways to educate the public, or have some guidelines in place that our operators can think about.
Kate, Lauren hopped off. She hopped back on, but now she seems to be off again here.
Oh, okay. Okay, no worries. Well, if no one has anything else to add with that one, then we'll transition into the next question. So,
Hold
one
on,
of the things.
I think Katie's got something here. She's raised.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't want to, but I really wanted to jump on what Andy said. I'm so glad that he brought that up, because general air quality hygiene in your building, in your pool, is significantly overlooked in our industry. And I think that is a very basic thing, as he's mentioned. You know, most aquatic supervisors, they have a handle on their facility at the deck level, even in the filter room level, in the change room level, but they have no idea what's happening in the air handling unit, whether it's on the roof or outside in the back. And it's really important that somebody have those filters on their work calendar, whether they themselves are changing them or they're talking with another building operator to do so. But that is so often overlooked, as well as the intake vents, as mentioned, as simple as even washing them at the deck level, making sure that they're clean. And then once every 4 to 5 years, getting your ducts cleaned. I mean, that's something that at my last aquatic facility that I managed, we had a 37-year-old pool. We had 2 major provincial forest fires in the previous few years, and nobody had considered that the pool ducts, with that high level of humidity, as well as just general settling of debris, we were recontaminating our own air in many ways that were only starting to become visible at the deck level, with guards experiencing increased cases of asthma and other respiratory distress. So those are very simple things that are hard to, they're hard to quantify. They're not really sexy to do, but they're super, super critical. As Andy said, you wouldn't live in your house all year round without changing the filters.
This is as Andy knows, is one of the contractor or one of the groups we work with about our stuff. This is something that we're dealing with at our indoor pool that is operational right now. One of our pools is not with COVID considerations, but yes, absolutely. So this kind of dovetails into the next question that we have then, and we'd like to try to see if anybody on the IPRA side has any input to the question. So the question is, how are you currently delegating some of these things? So hopefully with this call, we have more of a maintenance presence and an operator presence, and it might be that you have a situation like I do where I have a maintenance team and then we have an operations side and we work together and there's some overlap of that. But otherwise, how do people break down delegating different tasks and responsibilities, and what ends up falling to your frontline staff? Maybe it's some of the basic pool chemistry type stuff. What things fall to you? What things fall to your CPO or AFO, or what things are maybe on somebody else's radar as far as HVAC or things like that? Does anybody on the IPRA side want to kind of jump in and talk a little bit about that, just so our experts have maybe some frame of reference as well when they're answering questions and can tailor some of the questions to what we're sharing as our kind of situations?
Well, I'll share here in Ames, we have our indoor pool is shared with the high school. So the high school is in charge of maintenance and they have CPO that is taking the lead on, the mechanicals, the backwashing, that type of stuff. But the city uses the pool more. Maintenance is there 7 to 3:30 Monday through Friday. And outside of that, it's generally falls to me unless it's something I can't do. And then we need to go through the overtime process. So it gets a little bit complicated with the shared agreement.
Yeah.
Make sure everything stays in line and everybody coordinated.
Okay, well, to keep things moving, let's kick it back over to our panelists, and we'll probably just stay in that realm because the vision was that there was a little more dialogue with this, but we'll kind of roll with some of the outline of questions that we had. And if anybody on the IPRA side has thoughts or questions at the end, we do encourage you to pop those in the chat or to jump in, and we'll have some time at the end for those. So to the panelists, and I'm not sure if Lauren's back yet, but if not, for Katie and Andy and Cynthia, what tips do you have for us as far as the organization of some of these things? I know that some of us are just a one-person show. We're a really small, potentially rural pool. It might just be something that we do once a year. And then others of us have teams. So what are some best practices that you all have seen in the industry as far as how to delegate some of that stuff out, how to prioritize what full-time versus part-time staff might be doing, or just some general ahas you've had along the way that you could share with us that we could think about when we are potentially delegating out tasks and putting different priorities on people's workload?
So I have a couple of comments. Definitely it's about building capacity, but then also trying to make sure that the work is done correctly and not creating more work for yourself, especially if you're a one-person show. So in my experience, it's starting with just a simple list of everything that needs to get done, whether that's mechanical, whether that's programming, whether that's cleaning. And then from there, working to identify which positions in the organizational structure that you're in, whether that's just an aquatics department or whether you're part of a greater recreation department or you're part of facility operations, but you connect with them, and then identifying who should do what based on job description and not personality or convenience. And that's often something that people confuse, is they don't want to confront the person who's supposed to be doing what they're not doing because they've been in their position for a really long time. And ultimately then you have systemic failures within the organization. So once you've identified in your role, if I'm the aquatics manager, what are things that I should be doing, as a aquatics manager, then I'm going to look within my team of guards or instructors or shift leads and say, okay, what things can I do all the time? What things should I delegate perhaps only once a week to start until I'm sure of the competency of the person I'm delegating to, giving them the capacity to learn and train, but then also still making it manageable that I know each week or day what I do have to accomplish.
I would concur with everything that Katie said, because it's really important that you create a team atmosphere and make sure that everybody feels like they're part of that team and they're not an outsider. So that when you do need, there's an emergency or you do need something done, it's not this confrontational experience, but it's a teamwork experience. And then buy them donuts, I don't know, bring cookies, something like that to help create that team atmosphere and show that you really appreciate that what they do.
All right, awesome. Food does go a long way, no matter what the group is, I think. So just a few follow-up questions. For general maintenance items, one of the things that sometimes comes up is that there isn't a repeating process. Like people aren't doing things on a calendar process or a quarterly process or monthly or weekly or even more frequently than that. So what are some of the things in each of your opinions that you've seen that people are not doing with enough frequency? And what are things that people are maybe leaning on too much to do that they think are more of a solve all that potentially are creating issues for more of a routine maintenance schedule that you've seen in your practice, or not your practice, that's my yoga teacher talk, in your business, in your consulting, that you could share with us? Because I think that some of us, all of us on the call have different strengths. So some people, this really is their strength. For me, it's not my strength. And so there might be things that I'm trying to check has been done by my team, but maybe I'm not, I'm more of delegating things, but then don't always have the kind of that checklist to think I'm still building it, of what things should be done on a cyclical plan. So what are some of the things you all have seen that you could share with us that we could be thinking about?
So definitely within the facility and operations side of the industry, whether it's aquatics or otherwise, life cycle maintenance is based often on an equipment inventory or what you've got in your asset inventory. So whether, Kate, you're comfortable, you know what needs to happen with the air handling unit, or you don't know what needs to happen with different things, it's just starting somewhere, creating lists of tasks associated with either different areas of your facility. So filter room, pool deck, air handling unit room, identifying all of the tasks. Again, just make a list. Don't worry about categorizing it at first. What is everything that needs to be done in that room on a regular basis? The same way if you were going to inventory, how do I clean my house? Well, once a year, I might wash the baseboards. I might do the blinds, but every week I do the kitchen floor. So you got to start with a list. And then from there, you can plot it out either based on a calendar that's manageable for somebody to oversee, even if they are not doing the work themselves, or then you need to work with your organization or your work teams or HR to figure out what's a manageable workload. So in Jill's situation in Ames, where she's working in partnership, the city working in partnership with a high school, she's not going to have the ability to make excessive demands on the time of the school maintenance staff that are doing the entire school building. She can make requests, but it may not be accepted. And so it's taking those task lists and then identifying, who's responsible again, but then also plotting it out. What is quarterly, what is weekly, what is monthly, what is required based on warranties of equipment or asset infrastructure. Something like moving a pipe valve frequently, a couple times a year is not hard to do, doesn't require a lot of skill, but there has to be that written down somewhere to know to go and do it. So it's a bit of a project, I'm afraid. But you got to start somewhere with something along those lines.
And I would add that for some of you, you may go walk into the equipment room and there's a filter and there's a chemical feed system and there's a control system, but you may not necessarily have the experience or the background to know what is routine maintenance, what should be replaced on an annual basis. So working with your pool contractor, whoever that might be, and have them help you with that and say, look, I'm new. I don't really know if I've got a peristaltic pump. How often do I have to change out that tube? What other things should I be looking for? What about the tubing itself that goes from the pump through the system? How often should that be changed? So working with your pool contractor or your suppliers, your HVAC company, you know, if you've got somebody that works on your pool heater, and just talk to them about what, you know, I need some help understanding what needs to be done on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis. What's my 5-year plan? And then start there as well so that they can help you with that.
Also invest in a label maker. So hide the label maker from your lifeguards who will want to use it for everything. But to Cynthia's point of sticking a label on something as simple as when you're changing out a probe on your controller, or whether it's on a new valve. I mean, once you have timestamps, you'll start to notice things in your building or in your filter room that don't have timestamps. And if you don't have the longevity or continuity at your facility to know when stuff has been replaced, when stuff starts to break and you do replace it, then you can start to timestamp it or create a list of projects. So if there is another complete shutdown, or if you do have something else, you have some projects ready to go, or some things to at least investigate if you have to bring in a service tech to open something up.
You know, I have to add on that label maker. Like we've been using it quite a bit here at work in terms of labeling stuff as we're doing this new structure. We're also kind of finding out, because you have those printed pictures that you can stick on walls too, like those instant cameras. We're finding out if we do one picture, how the probe should look like and how it should not look like. That helps a little bit if you've got a massive team, so everyone's on the same page with that. So we're finding that effective a little bit here, but we also have a big team, so. So I kind of, sorry, Kate, were you gonna go ahead?
Well, I was gonna, I know you had a couple questions about some outdoor stuff. Do you want to do that first, and then we can wrap up and do some Q&A?
Yeah, I do.
Great.
Actually, the one, I mean, because a lot of this has been on indoor HVAC and combined chlorine, but we do have a lot of pools that operate seasonally during the summer. So what I want to propose is, even though outdoor pools are not concerned with HVAC systems, how can we ensure that how we're educating people on showering? Like, for example, COVID had really created a great opportunity for us to start building in, that suggested 5-minute time frame of showering. And now moving forward, COVID or no COVID, our lessons are going to be longer to incorporate that educational piece of showering. But what are some other opportunities beyond flyers could outdoor pools do to educate about being safe and clean coming in the pool, if that makes sense?
I think there's a lot of opportunity to educate your clients as well as your staff. It happens at a lot of different levels beyond the flyers we've already discussed. So you do need to have conversations with your staff, both frontline customer service as well as lifeguards, about enforcement. No lifeguard likes to do it, but honestly, with your staffed facilities, that is 50% of the battle, is if you have proper education and consistent enforcement. That's going to be key. I'm also seeing some really great displays that people have done in the lobby. There may not be a lot of congregating encouraged right now with the coronavirus pandemic, but setting up, for example, a camping shower, a solar shower in the lobby, setting up a display with different bottles of like shampoo and makeup and hair gel, and having kind of an interactive display to discuss the result, and then different water bottles with different muddied water to illustrate for kids that this goes into the pool and it's like a bathtub. Or I've seen different places make small, convert the pool canoe or other thing into a bathtub with balloons, and making it fun and really drilling down into the why. because often I find compliance really improves when people truly understand that it's like a big group bathtub. And I know we stay away from that in CPO courses to explain how it's different, but at a customer service kind of basic level, that is really going to bring out the gross ew factor that can help with compliance.
Lauren, I see that you've jumped back on. We're talking about some ways to educate folks about pool quality or water quality at the outdoor pool. I wanted to give you a chance to jump in though and share some thoughts about that, and maybe even speak a little bit to thoughts on pool breaks. So we talk about showering as like a mitigation strategy, but do bather breaks, are those something that you also suggest in trying to keep waters clean, or are there any other things besides like marketing potentially that we could be considering for outdoor pools?
Well, I totally agree with Katie Crysdale, the education piece. And because I have that regulatory background as well, I was a pool inspector for 16 years for our health department down here in Florida. So we dealt a lot with public swimming pools, and it was always the people didn't understand things if you just verbally said it. I agree with Katie, having something physically in front of them to show them why they should be showering is a great idea, because then they physically see what it does to the water. But talking about breaks, are the physical breaks, like people getting out of the pool, is that what we're talking about?
Yes, exactly.
And I know that a lot of our outdoor pools, our county pools down here in Florida do that, not even because they're outdoor. Majority of our pools are outdoor down here. We don't have a lot of indoor pools. Like I regulated 400 in my county, and we had 2 indoor pools. So 398 of them were outdoor. So the indoor air quality is not nearly as substantial, but what they would do just to make sure that kids were using the bathroom is they would have like an alarm or something at the county pool, city pool, that would get the kids out of the pool. It might be just an adult lap swim at that time or whatever. And then they always had concessions too. So they always encouraged through announcements to get the kids to hear about food. They'd want to get out of the pool at that time when they're required to take that break, and the parents have something to sidetrack them with. So there's some good things I've seen and heard out there, and it would give you guys that chance to have that break to get the kids out, do what you guys need to do.
Excellent. Andy, did you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to bring up something that I saw 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, pre-COVID. An outdoor pool here in Iowa called us in. They're having some issues and with clarity and stuff, and they weren't very positive that people were really showering before they got in the pool. This was an outdoor facility, and they set up one of those big misting tents kind of on the thoroughfare that they would take from the locker rooms out to the outdoor pool and stuff. And I thought that was an excellent idea.
That is a great idea. A lot of, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, building off of Andy's point, I think that's something we're seeing a lot with the coronavirus. There was discussed earlier, not showering necessarily on site, but I am seeing some pools where I am in Alberta, Canada. They are boosting their facility showers by adding those camping showers on deck, maybe with a garden hose from the hose bib. It's not pretty, but that really does provide that opportunity to have a visual of someone taking like a bathing suited shower and creating that culture that we expect to see you to showering before you get into the pool, as well as having more showers, because I think that's a critical failure that we see in a lot of facilities, is they're really not sized to have enough showers to really allow for a 30-second shower, right? There's bottlenecks in the change rooms before lessons, and then parents just pass through with their kids because it's not worth losing 3 minutes of a 30-minute paid lesson.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna switch over to Q&A, and I have to say that Brian and I are texting a little bit offline just to make sure the flow is okay with how we're asking questions. And I have to admit that my patrons don't really take showers. I mean, they don't during COVID, and they definitely don't as a normal practice. So I think it's important that we're talking about this, because it's easy for me when my lens is very operator and programmer and manager, and focusing on all the other realms that do happen to be my strengths, to be thinking about how we can be creating a pipeline to make a long-term goal of having more people showering before they get in the water. Because I really do think it's going to be a bigger picture, longer term, slowly putting different pieces in with the education and building that up. But it's an important conversation. So thank you. So let's flip it over to our maintenance teams and our pool operators and see what questions we have for our panelists. And we have about 10 minutes until 11:30. So what questions do you all have? I'll monitor the chat here. But if you wanted to ask a question verbally, please feel free to jump in. If it's for all the panelists, you can just answer it generally. If it's for one of them in particular, please feel free to ask them as well. And we'll see where the next few minutes take us with the Q&A. All right, do we have any Q to A? All right.
I don't have
well,
any. I don't
oh,
have
go
any
ahead.
Q&A. But part of this whole going back to the bathing before, showering before going into the water, I think a lot of this has to come down to design of your pool as well. Because I am at a loss as to how to, when Katie brought up, lifeguards having to enforce it and things. I don't know how I'm going to enforce that, because my guards are watching the water. My managers are taking care of specific problems and things that are happening. My admissions staff are behind a glass and monitoring them going in to take a shower. With then COVID going on, we're limiting the number of people that we can have in our shower facilities. That's where I am really having a hard time with because of the way our pool is designed. And I know Mason Cities, where I came from, they have one of the type of designs that I wish a lot of pool places would have, in which you have to go through your locker rooms in order to get to the pool. And while you can have shower set up for privacy, you could also have a shower set up for just bathing before going outside into the pool. And with their design as well, they can monitor as somebody's coming out if they're wet or not. I can't. They go into my facility and they have to make a point to go off to the right to go into the facility. And I'm not going to be the person that says, stop, you have to go into the bathroom, you have to take a shower, and then you can come out and go swimming. So that's where I am having a hard time with. I'm trying to educate. We talk about it in swimming lessons. We talk about it in the public forum, on the radio and everything else. I am having a hard time, wrapping my head around trying to get them in and understand that they have to go in and take a shower. So I like the tents, and I'm like, here's our COVID tent. Everybody go in and get sprayed down, and then you can go into the facility. So I'm trying to wrap my head around that. If I can have anybody help me with wrapping my head around that, I'm open to it.
I can go ahead and chime in, because it is the same situation. We can't really enforce it. It's just too hard. But how we've kind of approached it here the past 2 years is really looking at it at a psychological standpoint. And yeah, hitting hard in the education, hitting hard when we can on motor skills within our classes. So a motor skill would be like, you have to shower. That's part of our program built in now. You got to do it. In hopes that over time, it's going to be a long process, but over time, we've kind of started finding this now during some of our open swim days, where when we used to have them, mommy, daddy, we got to go shower first. So getting those kids, trying to pull their parents in, it's a long process, but it is starting to work a little bit that way, how we found, if that makes sense.
To Jennifer's point, I mean, infrastructure is a challenge, and I think so I can better clarify what I was saying earlier. In my experience, both as a lifeguard as well as a supervisor of lifeguards, it may be having your seated guard in a standing position that is on the deck side closer to the access point for the first 10 minutes or for the first rotation, and then the rotating guard moves back to the traditional position. So it does require amending your zones, but literally that quick eye contact that most lifeguards make to visually, check the customer coming in before they enter the basin or before they approach the basin, you can tell very quickly if they're wet or not. And it would be aside speaking, ma'am, you do need to shower, and putting it back on the health authority and the health inspectors. Make them the bad guys if you need to. So public health requires us to get you to shower, particularly during times of COVID. I would appreciate if you could go back into the change rooms and take a shower. And then related to that is increasing the time on your showers, because there's nothing worse than asking someone to shower and they have to hit the button 4 times to get wet. So getting your maintenance guys in to open up and increase that flow time, because that's also part of it. And then going from there in terms of that education, there is a video you can find on YouTube from Cochrane, Alberta. Several years ago, they opened a $40 million pool. They were closed within 5 or 6 weeks with water quality issues. The mayor was so frustrated, he came in and showered in a suit on the news channel to educate the community about the seriousness of this.
Nice.
I love that. That's great. I mean, it just shows how serious it is. I think too, Jenny, the other thing is that I think, my team doesn't do this with a lot of consistency because I haven't made this a big priority. I mean, of all the things that feel high on the list, this has never been on the list. So I'm a little enlightened today of where this has been placed in my hierarchy so that I can kind of trickle it down. But sometimes like using other places as examples is such a huge motivator, especially with the public. I find that a lot of, and I think this is true with every industry, but people that come to a pool, everybody that comes to this pool that has been coming for the last 30 years, like regularly tells me that they have been here, since 88 when it opened, and everybody seems to think that they're an expert on different subject matter. But I think that when we show what can happen in other places and use as examples, that's such a huge kind of a recall for people that this is really not, I mean, even I am an aquatics expert, and this is something that I'm not an expert in. So it just goes to show that we need to prioritize it, but then also educate, but also reframe it for people. I think that suggestion about where you're positioning staff is really great too. But yeah, Lauren, it looked like maybe you had a thought as well.
I agreed with Katie again. I used to work for the health department. We don't mind if you want to make us the bad guy. If it's going to get them to do the right thing, go ahead and use us, because once you say public health or the health department or whatever, they're like, oh God, government. And then they're going to change their tune a little bit. Not everybody will, but we certainly, as a health inspector, I wouldn't care. I didn't care. I was the bad person no matter what. It didn't matter what I did, good or bad. So if it's going to get better quality out of people showering and stuff like that, go ahead and do that. It's one tool in your belt.
I had one more thought too. For us, like people will hop in the hot tub right away before they go in the pool. And so maybe for us, a strategy is to have signage over there and really have that be like a landing place for that suggestion you had, Katie, about like a kiosk or like some kind of deeper education when people are kind of sitting in the spa, just staring at the wall or whatever. That might be a strategic place for us to put some extra information. We've obviously missed them that time if they're in the hot tub. But maybe that starts to become something that they see and they think about. So we did have
just hand them a bottle of soap.
Well, that's what our maintenance guy, he's in a different office listening to the call, and he was like, people just use the hot tub as a shower or as a bathtub, which is disgusting and not incorrect. Okay, let's do one more question and then I want to honor our panelists' time here. So the question is from Sadie in Adele. So she was wondering about feedback on slide restoration and refurbishing, and maybe just some general timeline practices. She was asking if 10 years is a pretty good parameter, more often, less often. And this can be from the panelists. And maybe after that, we'll also see what other operators do. We don't have any slides, so I don't have any input, but I know quite a few of you on the call do have slides.
Always check with the manufacturer because you don't want to void your warranty by either not meeting minimum inspection or servicing or by doing something different. So I visited a client recently that they had their slide refurbished and they used the wrong product. So now they're up the creek with a $2 million slide that they've refurbished incorrectly. At a basic level for slides, you need to be doing especially more complex slides with bends and vertical drops. I mean, you need to be walking those slides daily from top to bottom with a headlamp before the start of the day, checking for protrusions. You need to be checking the connections on the pieces of slide, whether that's you that's capable of doing it or bringing in an outside expert once a year, once every 3 years, at least at the intervals recommended by your major manufacturer. And all of your slides will be stamped. And so you can go back to the manufacturer and ask them to send you your, the basic care and maintenance, whether your supplier sends it or the actual manufacturers, the big ones, Pro Slide, Whitewater West, all of them, they'll send you documentation if you need to.
Wonderful, thank you. And then just for anybody not in the chat, Andy did suggest talking with John Kelly from the health department as well, and said, kind of affirm that, doing close inspections yourself before and after the season and bring in a professional. So it sounds like there's some consensus there. And as far as professionals, I know a lot of people use some of the same folks in the state and in the Midwest. So if you need references for that or different consultants, we can share that as well. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. I want to thank our panelists. So Katie from Lakeview Consultant, we're so glad to have you on. Where is somewhere we could learn more about what you're up to as far as your website and your social? I know you're really active on Instagram. That's my favorite place to follow along because I love your visuals.
Thank you. Yeah, social media is my jam, which is ironic because my staff at my last facility still complained that I never responded to texts because that was a management practice. So yes, Lakeview Aquatic Consultants. My name is Katie Kreisdale. I'm based near Calgary, Alberta, Canada, but I get around all over. We're on Instagram, Lakeview Aquatic Consultants, Facebook page as well, Lakeview Aquatic Consultants, YouTube, LinkedIn, and that's where I really try and educate through images and really little bite-sized pieces. Yes, CPO is great, but 16 hours, we only retain, what do they say, like 15% of what we learn in a day. So little bits, kind of day by day, small chunks on social is kind of my goal.
Awesome, thank you. And then Lauren Bloom from Space Coast Pools, where can we find you out there in the World Wide Web? You're doing a lot of virtual classes, I think, and you have an online presence as well, which is how we're all connecting in the time of COVID, which is awesome.
Yep. So you can find me on all the same platforms that Katie mentioned. I'm all over Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. And then I'll be starting a podcast. I'm recording episodes now. So I'll have a podcast starting out hopefully this month with episode 1 that will be posted on social media, on my YouTube channel, and some of the other platforms like the Apple Podcasts and stuff like that. iHeart, hopefully, stuff like that. So I'll have different topics. I'll have some coming up on drowning prevention from barriers to somebody who actually had their child that drowned at age 3, 8 feet from a lifeguard, to what they're doing here in Florida, which they were trying to make it mandatory that children through the school districts in Florida have to get swim lessons before they finished kindergarten. But our government here, state government, didn't want to have anything to do with it. So all they were able to get through with the bill was put it out there in writing so that the parent is notified and get them thinking about swim lessons for their child. Since the leading cause of death is age 0 to 4. I'll have somebody on about autism and swim lessons with Parks and Rec and what things you guys can do. So there'll be some good stuff. It's not just going to be pool people. It'll be a variety. So I have a lot of different things out there other than just doing CPO classes. Kind of like Katie. She's awesome with all her stuff too. Sometimes I have to share some of your stuff, Katie. It's good. I love it. And you get personal on Facebook because you show my cup of coffee and the meal you made. And I'm like, golly, I wish I could cook that good. Your meals look so much better than mine do, but I'm kind of scattered brain with my 3 kids and everything else. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us. And then our friends from Carico, Andy and Cynthia, can you tell us a little bit more about where we can connect with Carico and how we can reach out to you if we have any additional questions or need some expertise?
Well, unlike the other two, we have very little online presence, but I am in your mechanical rooms. So I know most of the people here on this meeting, but you can contact either myself or Dave on our phone, and we'll come and help you with anything you need.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all 4 of you so much for the presentation and the conversation. As it goes with aquatics, some things stay the same and some things change. I mean, COVID's kind of shown us that. So as questions come up, we'll reach out to you all, and we really appreciate your perspectives and your expertise. And it's really great for us here in Iowa to be able to talk with you all. So thank you so much. We are going to wrap up the panel here and jump into some more discussion about some future aquatics network or aquatics workshop topics. But before we do that, we wanted to talk about the recent proclamation that came forth from the governor on Tuesday and how that might be impacting pools, and maybe just talk through how people are interpreting that and how that's manifesting into changes in actual pool spaces with reservations or with masks and so on. So does anybody want to jump in and kind of talk through that, or do we need more of a recap? Could I get a little bit of maybe just some input about what people's understanding is so far? Do we want to just talk about what we're doing all independently, or do we maybe need to go over a little bit what was in the proclamation? And Kelly and Brian, feel free to jump in here too and let me know what you think.
I think I mean, it's kind of hard for me a little bit right now as my pool's not open, but I'm still kind of waiting to see what, some other organizations are doing with that latest proclamation. Plus, I don't know, there's still the question with the masks, and what I kind of think a little bit is more bigger groups like swim teams. So I don't know, I'd say continue to have those discussions and see what works, but yeah, I don't know.
Brian, are you questioning your lifeguards on the masks, or masks as people walk out on the deck? What's your mask?
No, I'm questioning because I did have a pool in this area question regarding with the latest proclamation, and they have a swim team that practice more than 25 at a time. Do they wear masks or not? And it's like, well, they're in the water, they shouldn't wear masks, but it's still kind of the verbiage and how they're interpreting that. So like I was kind of saying to you guys, I'm curious to see what the Iowa High School Association is going to respond to that when it comes to the swim team and swim meets and practices. So
I guess I lifeguarded the other day for our swim team. Obviously, we have an Olympic-sized natatorium at Grinnell College, so its space is not a problem. And unfortunately, with our COVID exposures, we had a whopping 7 boys in the water, 2 lifeguards on deck, and 2 coaches. So the place was pretty empty. All of us were required to wear a mask as we walked in, and the requirement, which comes down from Grinnell College to them, is 1 person per lane, even though that's a requirement. We know that USA Swimming and other entities are allowing more. I haven't seen anything really specific from the high school as far as anything different that's come out since the governor's made her mandate. Unfortunately, Grinnell goes virtual as of Monday, so we're shut down for 3 weeks. So moot point for us right now. So
I can share a little bit about what we're doing in Iowa City. So we opened in August for the first time since March for pre-reservation lap swim that coincided, or I'm sorry, that's not true. We opened in August for the school district because we have a 28E agreement with them for pool use. So we opened for our high school swim team here, and then we ended up taking the other local high school swim team in because there was some issues with another pool in the area. I don't know if Aaron's on the call, but we didn't open to the public at that time. We opened for public lap swim in the beginning of October. And the only reason why we reopened in August was because we had that agreement with the school district, and we had pretty strict rules in place, like even more so than other areas. But because we're the facility, we felt like we were gonna have those in place, and that was going to be part of the agreement for using this space. So with lap swim, we opened up to 1 person per lane, which at first it was just 8 people, and then we opened it up to 18 because we're also an Olympic size pool. So we have 2 bodies of water that are 25 yards and 8 lane bodies of water. And then at the beginning of this week, well, I guess the beginning of last week before the proclamation came out, we had decided due to numbers in Johnson County that we were going to reduce back down to 8 lanes. And so that started to take effect early this week, but we're also now extending that over to the swim team. We just have 1 swim team because the district has gone online effective Monday. So the junior high and the high school are not practicing now. So as far as how that's working, we're letting our affiliate club swim team now occupy the time that the district had, which was closed off to the public. And so we're reducing how much lane space they have. They're only allowed to have 8 athletes in the whole pool, every other lane. So that's 4 in the deep and 4 in the mid. But so far, I mean, they're agreeable to it just because that's just what we're asking for them for safety reasons, which I think is a little more conservative than other places are doing, but that's kind of where we're at right now. We still do have public lap swimming going on, but it's only during, it's only from 6 to 4, and we're not open on weekends. We had plans to reopen more hours this weekend, and we pulled that due to numbers. So we're kind of just waiting to see what is next. If that's, things get stabilized and we add more lanes, or if we continue to kind of cut things down. So that's kind of how we're interpreting it, with like our own interpretation really of what we're doing, but we're trying to be as conservative as possible. One more thing to in that proclamation, it basically says that youth sports are exempt from having to wear masks with practice and games. And so I would just read that if you're wondering about some of that stuff. For us, swim team comes in, they get screened, they wear masks. Coaches and lifeguard staffs wear masks at all times. And then athletes have masks at the end of the lane, and they get out and they put their mask on and they get out. And that's true for lap swimmers of the public, and that's true for swim team athletes as well.
I was wondering by chance, I don't have this problem, but I just wondered around the state with the virtual kids going virtual. Marshalltown just went virtual, and that meant no practices, no games for high school. But how does that affect your guys' swim teams?
In Ames, we're the same thing. Monday, high school goes virtual. My kids started virtual yesterday. So when this happened with girls season way back, at first the coach, so girls were online, so they couldn't practice. ACAC said, hey, we want to absorb the girls. And I at first said, you need school's approval because, the intent is they're shutting down sports. So is there going to be a negative effect that somebody says, well, those girls are basically still practicing? So I said, that's between the school and ACAC, what you guys do. I think you both need to be good with that, and any fallout that may occur, I will allow it. But I think the school needs to give their blessing that that's okay. And they did. And so now same thing is happening with the boys. There's probably, they're expecting about 15 of the high school boys. Some families are choosing not to, but it is an option that the boys can then move over and swim with ACAC. They're also absorbing the practice time that the high school used to use, so they can spread all their kids out more than they were doing. We are allowing, with the USA swimming protocols, up to 6 swimmers in a lane, but with that social distance of at the wall, 6 feet out, 12 feet out. But this way, taking in the high school team, they can spread out, or taking in the high school time, they can spread out even more.
And I think, Jenny, it's my understanding the coaches just cannot be physically present. Our activities director said the coaches can do stuff virtually with the kids and send out workouts. They just can't be present at another facility. And that, I believe that was the same thing this summer, that we had kids practicing at facilities. The coaches just, for those facilities that allowed people in, whether that was a pool, a gym, or whatever, coaches just couldn't be present during those activities.
So the only other question that because not only am I aquatics, but I'm on the recreation side of things, and so we do, if the school is doing something, then we follow suit. So how many of the other recreation departments are, if school's not in session or it's virtual, are you not having swimming lessons? Are you still having swimming lessons? We're on a break right now because of holiday seasons coming up and things, but I wondered what other people were doing.
Right now, we're still offering programming. I have not heard anything about scaling that back. We're watching what we're doing and we're making tweaks with what's going on, but we are still offering programs.
Unless anything's changed in the 4 days I've been gone, we're still offering programs.
Nothing has changed in the last 4 days you've been gone, Spence. So feel free to come back.
Here at Clive, it's kind of up in the air because we are finding a couple of communities around us are shutting down their programs. So I have a feeling here this weekend might be our last weekend for in-person stuff, but everything else we're doing virtual. So
in Mason City, we're 100%, but I have that feeling we're going to be going virtually here very soon. Hearing back talks with Brian, he came to me about childcare. So we are still continuing to have programs. We have volleyball and stuff right now for youth stuff, but I have a very good feeling if this, like I said, it's getting worse. Our basketball season's really up in the air right now too. Basically any programming. We're trying to do a lot of things virtually, and stuff with special events like with Santa stuff coming up in Christmas. But I just have a bad feeling too that our programs are going to be possibly put on hold for us as well if things keep dramatically getting worse.
And I kind of do want to add a little bit. I was meaning to kind of talk about this too, but with, definitely for the upcoming Tuesday meeting about rec programming and Jeff's decision on masks, definitely attend that one because that is our last hurrah to offer this league. Otherwise, the issue was you either mask them up or you not have it at all. And Jeff will explain that a little bit further on that meeting on how that decision came down. But to be honest, so far, we've only had a small percentage of people upset. Everyone else has been like, do what you guys need to do because we don't want to risk losing our leagues. So definitely worth attending that session if you can.
So in Iowa City, we have not really done much since March. We did do a drive-in event for Halloween. But other than that, the only thing that we've added is that limited lap swim that was by reservation only. And we're adding one more thing. So we're just getting a lot of questions from more of like the social service agencies about facilities and warming spaces. So one of the things that we've added, and we're cognizant that people are going indoors as it gets colder. We are opening up like pod rentals, basically, where you can come and rent one of our facilities for an hour and a half. Like you rent a room in one of the facilities for an hour and a half, and you come in with your people, and it's capped at 10 people. But that way, people can come and be in a communal space together, but there is not like activity allowed. So you couldn't do like a fitness class or something like that. It would be more just kind of socializing. Masks need to be on the whole time. You can take masks off to eat or drink, but so we're debuting those. And then otherwise, I mean, we're just really kind of slow to reopen stuff, and that's really across the city. The library is still closed. The senior center is closed. City Hall was letting people in on appointment, but I'm kind of waiting for more direction. I think that we're going to be probably returning to where we were with what's happening, and we're not even as bad as we could be on this side of the state. So yeah, we're back to that place of day by day. And I kind of forgot what that was like, honestly, when we were in the fall. I was like, okay, this is sustainable. And now it's back to day by day. And then pretty soon it goes back to hour by hour, where it's like things are just changing on the hour. So I'm trying to mentally prepare myself for that, because I do think that it's coming quickly, unfortunately. So that's kind of what we're doing here.
So one question I have, I've been trying to figure out what other indoor pools are operating, because I like to watch what other people are doing and try to figure out, I mean, there's a lot that are seasonal. So I would love to kind of get a list of who is operating, and then be able, to reach out to some other people that I haven't really been talking to on, what are you doing? Just trying to find better ways, and not that I don't think our ways are good, but just, that indoor is a little bit unique. So trying to see who else I haven't thought of.
Who do we have so far? So we here Iowa City is open for lap swim only. The University of Iowa is open for lap swim right now. Coralville is open for pretty much everything. They have lessons as well. Ashley's on the call for North Liberty. I think it's just lap swim and lessons right now, Ashley.
Yeah, so we just canceled as of Tuesday aqua classes, lap swim, all programming programs in the rec center. So we're back to just lap swim, weight area reservations, and track reservations.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just got my notice from North Liberty that everything had gone virtual. So I don't know. We do have a water exercise class going on, very small. Normally 30 people in it. We do have 11, because that's really what we can take wise. Lap swim, we've been doing that, every day for about 4 hours a day, and we're starting to see that number dwindle now. That's because there's no locker rooms, and people have to go outside with wet hair and in their near nakedness, wet swimsuits. But and Spence has got a few folks in lessons, but the proclamation, I don't think changes anything for us in terms of a mandate for what we're doing. But I would probably echo what Kate is saying, that there's more in the wind as city leadership begins to look at whether they feel they need to clamp down, even though there's not a statewide mandate. But We have a few things going on, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if things didn't get curtailed here pretty soon.
Jill, do you have any updates on who you know in the metro that has indoor pools that's open? There really aren't that many indoor municipal pools in that area. Urbandale, I think, is still closed. Is that right?
Yeah, they just extended, oh, I'm trying to think through what date now that they,
January something. I just read on social media yesterday. Does that sound right, Jill? January something?
yeah, I was thinking January, maybe even February.
Yeah.
Is ISU pool open?
They are, yeah. Yeah. So we are doing kind of everything right now. We're doing lap swim. We are doing open swim, capped at 30 is what we've been doing. 22 is our highest. We're doing swim lessons, but this week we're ending our group lessons and we're going to start to focus on some private lessons. We're actually getting several rentals. We have one family that's rented 3 times just for their family because they're more comfortable with that. We are doing a couple aqua classes, smaller numbers, spaced out. How many people in our rental? We had capped our rental at 30. We started with 25 and then we had bumped it up to 30. But most of them have been maybe around 10 people. So.
Hey, Jill, how's your open swim going? Because we are tentatively planning on bringing it back in January.
It's going well so far. People really have been good about following the rules. You know, we do require masks. We do say you have to social distance in the water unless it's a member of your household. And people have really been pretty good about understanding if they want the pool, this is what they need to do. We have a 2-hour time block. And I mean, it's been between 5 and 22 people. The weather this year has had a big impact on what that number is. You know, the nicer weekends have been lower. The cooler weekends we've had, you know, 15, 22. So it's been going well.
Good.
Okay, well, and also I think we're gonna try to work on just having a little bit of a, Brian has been compiling data from the survey. So that might give us a better kind of list of indoor, outdoor, who's operational and how. So that's great. Okay, I also wanted to talk about 2 upcoming things. So we do have a December meeting that's planned. And when this is in person, it sometimes is a big turnout and sometimes it's not. It just depends on when it falls, I think, in holiday plans. But we wanted to kind of get a read for what people are wanting from the December call, if they want to have it, and kind of what kind of format would be helpful. So we have tried a different format since we're online, where we've brought in a guest speaker to fill that time up and serve as kind of a theme to the call. And I think that having the guests has been great. Sometimes the conversation, I think, just isn't as lively as it is in person. And I think that's just a product of us being virtual and also being kind of fatigued by being virtual. So we just wanted to kick it over to everybody and hear from you all what you're wanting for the December call. Do we want to have a call next month? Do we want a speaker? Do we want to just have more kind of roundtable check-in? What would be of value to everybody? And what is just some general feedback from the first half of the year for how the workshop, or not the workshop, but the meeting has been set up?
I think for me personally, because things are kind of changing here, I mean, I have to have basically right now summer set by the end of January. That's kind of the challenge. So I would be curious in a meeting very, very soon to have more discussion around how we're doing social distancing and open swim and reservations, and kind of understanding that a little bit, where some places are doing the number by how many people they can fit in their storm shelter versus just the cap of the load capacity. I don't know. I just got to get my head around that a little bit more.
I would have to mirror that concern. I'm struggling with anything but what are we going to do this summer? Simply because that I'm in the same boat. We're trying to plan right now, because I come back from the 1st of January and they're going to say, let's have that summer brochure and all of your glorious plans. So kind of back to where we were before, well, with all the contingency plans. But I would like to know, after people have had a little bit to think about it, what are they thinking they're going to try to do this summer? And certainly with a December meeting, boy, a lot can happen in 4 weeks.
Right.
So I never know what we might be deciding to have a group cry when it comes to next December. To December, but that would be, for me, that would be beneficial to hear how other people think they might try to, and those people who were lucky enough to get open last summer, even if it was for a couple months, what did they learn from that? And can you tell me so that I don't make the same mistakes? They say that copycatting is flattery. I'm ready to copy whoever thinks they can make it work, because we all want the pools to get open. Everybody wants the pools to get open, and so we got to try something. I'd love to hear what other people are doing. I also echo what Jill said. Brian, if you have nothing else to do in your life, that if we really did get a list of people of the indoor pool facilities in the state, that would be beneficial for me, so that I don't have to, we don't have to focus a lot of our time during these meetings for the few people that do have indoors. So that time could be spent for the plethora of people that do outdoors. So if you have nothing else to do, Brian, just put that on your honey-do list.
Well, I can tell you, I do have that list right now. It's just not in presentable format. So if
well, you get to work prettifying that for us. And if you need some help, you let Spence know. He'll be more than happy to help you.
Oh, Spence, you want some of my task? I'll give you, I'll push some of it off.
I'm not back in the office till Monday.
Now, the goal, hopefully, the whole thing was almost done for today, but there's just so much complexity to it. So wanted to push out what we need now, but the comprehensive should be in the next week or two. So, nope, I understand the stress. Want to get it out quick.
If I could interject, Brian, the people that have been on this meeting, to my knowledge, most of you are either a major municipality or you're close to a major municipality. For our customers last season, I noticed that, most of the major municipalities were shut down. So if you want to see how other people did it, you'll need to reach out to those members that are more rural, because that's what we saw was a lot of the towns that were, say, 10,000, had a population of 10,000 or less, those pools seemed to open up for the most part. So if you're looking for resources on how they did things, that's where I would start looking.
Yeah.
And as far as indoor facilities, the city of Osage runs the Cedar River Center. I know they've been open for a long time.
So I think it sounds from you guys, there's a consensus that maybe something a little more informal roundtable discussion in December in 4 weeks is what you guys are looking at. And as I'm looking on here of who's left on this call, some of you guys, I know budgets have been cut. You weren't able to come to our virtual fall workshop, but Kevin Post did 2 presentations, and one was very specific on what worked during COVID, what did we learn, how would we change? We know we're going to carry those same things over to next summer. So we do have those recorded. Steve and I are working on a plan to get them out for CEUs. Hopefully that's something we could potentially share with you guys too, because it just nailed it for a lot of the questions that I've been getting asked. And Kevin just does a phenomenal job anytime he presents, but I thought that nailed it there, and just to really start planning ahead. So we can maybe work on that with Kate and Brian of coming up with some questions for you guys, and just think of a roundtable discussion more. As we said, a lot can change in 4 weeks. I mean, a lot of us are going into a 2 to 3 week shutdown here. And I think after Thanksgiving, around the first part of December, we're going to kind of know, are we opening back up? Where are our numbers at? And that's going to change a lot for how you guys plan. The other thing we'll get posted is this wage and fee survey. I think now more than ever, budgets are so tight. And as you guys are fighting for those wages for your lifeguards, who are going to be still somewhat frontline workers. I mean, they have to make that rescue. They have to give CPR. This wage and fee for those 40 some facilities that filled it out, it's priceless what we can get from that. I'm disappointed we didn't get a little bit more. And maybe it's folks that have never used it before and don't understand the importance. Hopefully we can continue to add to that. But for those facilities that did fill that out for us, for our IPRA members, it's priceless, and we want to get that out to you. So we'll be posting that very soon on our membership side. So thank you to those that did fill that out, because I know this is going to be taken to a lot of boards and commissions and councils to justify those wages for your lifeguards here.
Sounds like we'll just have a state of the summer, which was actually on, we had anticipated that maybe we'd be burnt out a little bit of lots of sessions. So that sounds like right in line with what we were thinking. So that sounds perfect for December. It might also be important for us to talk about manager training and maybe planning for that to be virtual, if that's something that people are wanting to talk about doing for 2021. Other than that, I think that's all that we had. We did have a request to have a few questions offline that were unrecorded if we wanted to wrap up here, and then just see what other questions we might have that are left, and then we can wrap up for this fabulous Friday.
Great. Thanks everyone for coming. I will stop recording here.
Awesome. Thank you.
You.